Hi people, Moin away from Bakir again as always and as usual. Yeah, this is going to be another astrological video, and check it out. It's going to be the natal chart and or constellation of Aleister Crowley. I already covered a video in which I dove into Aleister Crowley's mind. Wait until the end of this video or check the link to that video in the description of this video below. So yeah, let's get started. Crowley was born on October the 12th, 1875. The NS you see there is, it was on a Tuesday. Stands for New Style Calendar, as opposed to the Old Style Calendar that they used to apply. He was born in Leamington Spa, Warwickshire in England, in the UK. And this is his time of birth. I use my power as I usually always usually do. 8:44 a.m. I was also told something interesting. There were like birth complications that almost lasted an hour, because I saw, like, in a vision I saw 8:44 a.m. between 8:44 a.m. and 9:44 a.m. But my own astral body told me that you can use 8:44, and it also told me why I'm seeing like a flash of 9:44 a.m. Just like I said earlier, birth complications. But in any case, for astrological purposes, and the time that Crowley officially came into this material world when he was born was 8:44 a.m. So yeah, let's get started. Crowley has Jupiter and Mercury and the ascendant in Scorpio. He has Lilith in Sagittarius. He has Mars in Capricorn. He has Saturn and Aquarius going retrograde. He has the Moon in Pisces. He has the Pot of Fortune, the North Node, and the Earth and Chiron in Aries. Chiron is going retrograde, so is Neptune. Neptune is in Taurus. Pluto is also going retrograde in Taurus. Uranus is in Leo. Almost conjunct midheaven. And then we've got, lastly, Juno, Pallas, Ceres in Virgo. And the South Node, the Sun, and Venus in Libra. The Sun and Venus notably are conjunct the 12th house, also in Libra. So yeah, let's get started. Jupiter in Scorpio stands for the fact that, and in the 12th house stands for the fact that by default Crowley was the kind of guy that he, not only did he have a very strong interest in the occult, he also essentially, how should I put it, intertwined or correlated sex with the occult up to a certain degree and or extent. And he was someone that, was a heavy investigator. He didn't leave anything to chance when it came to the occult. He really dove in head first. That's also why the ascendant is in Scorpio and Jupiter is conjunct the ascendant, as well as Mercury. Mercury being in Scorpio in the first house stands for the same thing. He was the investigative type, someone that left nothing to chance and really studied everything thoroughly in detail, and so on and so forth. But Mercury, generally speaking, doesn't function all too well in the house of Aries, which stands for the fact that he, generally speaking, also had a tendency to be impulsive. He was like an impulsive thinker. Might come off as aggressive even with his thoughts and ideas, and you name it, to the point where they sometimes don't seemingly make sense to other people that in that moment are level-headed regarding thinking. Simply intensity as a whole. Now we've got Lilith in Sagittarius, in Aries' house, conjunct the second house. The second house is notably 7 degrees above the average 30 degrees, which stands for the fact that Crowley did well, generally speaking, financially. Not that he was like a mega billionaire, but he wasn't poor, definitely. And Lilith and Sagittarius being there stood for hidden diplomatic contacts, honestly, or contacts of a foreign and or political nature, or similar, or educational nature, or either a combination of all the aforementioned or one or more of them. Now, Mars is conjunct the 3rd house in Capricorn. Mars is in one of the strongest signs it can be in. It stood for the fact that Crowley was almost ruthlessly ambitious when it comes to day-to-day life and affairs. He really was a go-getter, and he gave it his all. Saturn in Aquarius going retrograde in the 3rd house stands for the fact that Crowley was generally speaking a public figure, and he was disciplined, but at the same time, he also lacked discipline in certain areas of life that were of a detriment to his overall well-being. Notably or noticeably, Saturn is opposed Uranus, and Uranus is in the weakest sign it can be, in Leo. This opposition, and Uranus being at its weakest, stands for the fact that he, generally speaking, had a tendency to display erratic behavior, and erratic specifically as in flamboyance, either of a romantic nature or as of a leisurely nature, like party going and having fun, hosting these extravagant but primarily unorthodox parties, like weird fetish-like parties and whatnot, as an example. Now, the moon is in Pisces, and the moon is opposed Juno and Pallas. The moon in Pisces in the 4th house, the moon is so strong. It's in Pisces, in a water sign, strong, and in the house that it rules over. Stood for the fact that Crowley was tremendously sensitive and had a high natural power level, both active as well as passive. He was very gifted clairvoyantly. But that came into conflict with his ability to keep a good rapport with essentially his bosses if he worked somewhere, or authority figures in general. That's why it's opposed Juno and Pallas. Okay, this is at a minor level, but still, he was more of a dreamer, and that did not go over well with being a serious worker and or employee, a serious laborer. Now you've got the Pot of Fortune, the North Node, like I already said, and the Earth in Aries in the 5th house. All of this stands for the fact that Crowley was someone that desired, and also up to a certain extent, but arguably minimal, invested a lot of time in, primarily wanted to, but up to a lesser extent, invested a considerable amount of time in and effort into creativity and being stable overall, and having strength and willpower, and just being fun-loving in general. Chiron also in Aries in the 6th house, and the 6th house is so small. The 6th house is, let me see, 7, only 18 degrees, 12 degrees less than the base 30 degrees that any house has. Let me see, 23 plus 7 is 30, and the 11, 18. Now, Chiron being in Aries, Chiron already doesn't function all too well in Aries in general, and then it's going retrograde again. So for the fact that at a minor level, Crowley did not get along well with employees and employers, and overall, things did not go well for him, generally speaking, on the working floor. Neptune is in Taurus going retrograde, says the same thing essentially. Honestly, Neptune is also opposed Jupiter. It stands for the fact that his strong interest in the occult did not align with just overall being your default employee, or someone that has a default career, or just works a regular job, or anything like that. That's why Neptune is in Taurus, doesn't function well in Taurus by default. It's strong adversely in Scorpio, obviously. And then it's going retrograde on top of all of that. So Crowley was not really someone that liked working like the average job and whatnot. If he did so, then it was purely for material gain at absolute best. But in his heart, he did not like working whatsoever. Pluto is in Taurus going retrograde in the 7th house, the house of Libra, which stood for the fact that Crowley, generally speaking, could either be forceful and demanding from people that he had strong relationships with and bonds with, whether it's a marriage partner, whether it was close friends, anyone that he was close to in terms of a relationship, whether it be a friendship, a romantic relationship, you name it. He was either overbearing and demanding, or the exact opposite, so passive to the point where he just didn't care really. The fact that Pluto is square Uranus indicates that it was most likely a mixture of both. He was just all over the place, let's just put it that way. Okay, sometimes he could be passive, but and other times he could be like ultra demanding and primarily driven by money or support or support. I already covered Uranus. Uranus, other than being in Leo, is in the 9th house, which stands for the same things I already said when I discussed the opposition with Saturn. But it being in the 9th house stands for the fact that Crowley also had an interest in, a keen interest in, not just in metaphysics, not just the occult overall and whatnot, but metaphysical science. You know, anything from astrology to astronomy, anything along those lines. Okay, but understanding it and coming to terms with it and excelling in it was hindered substantially by all the things that I already mentioned earlier in that opposition with Saturn. I already discussed all of these. Ceres says the same thing that I discussed when I discussed the moon opposed Juno and Pallas. Last but not least, the Sun and the Sun and Venus, both being in Libra. Kind of funny because he has a considerable Libra influence, similar to me, in the 11th house, the house that deals with Aquarius. The Sun in Libra, the Sun is weak in air signs in general. In Aquarius stands for the fact that Crowley did have like a refined taste for the public, but primarily individuals that he could get along well with, like really close people he kept close to him, cultivating relationships and whatnot, and so on and so forth. And he had a refined character when it came to interacting with people, certain individuals, as well as his overall esoteric skills. Venus in Libra says the same thing. A love of the public and public affairs and whatnot, and being overall refined, loving strong relationships with people, you name it. And again, Venus at its absolute strongest in Libra, conjunct the 12th house, which is also super strong. Although the 12th house, similar to the 6th house, is only 18 degrees. Which stands for the fact that, generally speaking, his occult career wasn't that extensive compared to the average person's lifespan. Let's just put it that way. He had either a short-lived career, or he had a short-lived interest, relatively speaking, in heavy occultism within a specific context. Either one of the two or a mixture of both. And it's separated, the conjunction is separated only by 4 minutes. Amazing, a perfect conjunction, separated only by 4 minutes, not even a degree. This obviously stands for the fact that Crowley had a devastating strong interest in the occult, a really heavy-handed level of interest. And for the rest, let's see, Midheaven is ruled by Leo, which stands for stability in general. Not that Crowley was stable necessarily. Let me see what other interesting things I can say. So let's see. Crowley has 3 planets in air signs, 3 in water signs, 4 celestial bodies. If we don't count these, then it's only 2, well 5. If we don't count Ceres, Juno, and Pallas, then it is just Mars, and quote unquote, just Mars and Neptune, both of which are in earth signs. Pluto as well, sorry. So yeah, again, to recap, the Sun and Venus in an air sign, so 2 planets in air signs, 3 in water signs. If you count the ascendant, it's 4. 3 in earth signs, 3 in air signs, the Sun, Venus, and Saturn. Oh boy. And none in fire signs. If we do count the minor celestial bodies, then in total it's like what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 celestial bodies in earth signs, 3 in air signs, 4 in water signs, and only one in an air, I mean 2 in fire signs. Yeah, Uranus included. I'm sorry, his chart is a bit all over the place. Not meant negatively, obviously. But yeah, no, Crowley was well balanced in general. He had a good deal of all the elements. There is not one dominant element really. Strong water affiliation, strong aerial affiliation. You know, the thing he related a strong earth-based affiliation. The only thing that he lacked, or the thing that he lacked the most, was fire. But again, the devil lies in the details. Libra is quite strong. The Sun might be weak in Libra, but Venus is at its absolute strongest and conjunct the 12th house, also ruled by Libra, is the reason he was so well developed. I also have a strong Libra influence. People that know me know that. And strong Scorpio influence. Okay, Jupiter is already in one of the houses it rules over, so we're at strongest house-wise, and then it also functions well in Scorpio, especially within this context. You know, Crowley had excellent placements. The weakest links for Crowley, or like I said, the fact that he wasn't interested in any mundane job whatsoever, the fact that he could be overbearing and use people for his own personal ends, and the fact that he, generally speaking, did not get along well with authority figures, and also the fact that he was bipolar. Let me see if there's anything else interesting that I can say. The moon is square Lilith. Okay, the moon is square the black moon. Stands for emotional instability as well, up to a certain extent. Primarily instigated by high levels of clairvoyance. Let me see. Mars is also square both the Sun and Venus. Ambition made it so that sometimes he did not get along well with people, at the very least. Saturn is trine these two, but again, Saturn's going retrograde. Neptune is super weak. Super duper weak. Neptune is not only weak in Taurus and going retrograde, but it's also weak at its weakest in this house, the house of Virgo. So definitely not good. He really did not like working, any kind of mundane work or anything that was routine. You know, the average Joe's job. He definitely didn't like that. Pluto, like I already said, was square Uranus. I already explained what that means. The overbearingness and whatnot. Pluto is trine Mars. Pluto is trine this entire cluster, yeah. Pallas, Juno, and Ceres. Let me see. Mercury is square Uranus. Jupiter is almost square midheaven. Mercury is square Saturn. Pluto is square Saturn. Venus and the Sun and Venus are sextile Uranus. Yeah, that pretty much sums up what Crowley was about, you know. Again, I've only scratched the surface, of course. If you read everything in ultra detail, you'll see a bunch of other things about his life. But the things that the public knows him for, you can see why. Similar to me, the strong Libra influence led to a refined personality when it comes to, especially when it comes to practicing the occult, coupled with his level of determination. Okay, he has a strong Scorpio influence, just like me. I have Pluto and Saturn in Scorpio. Saturn is in the 11th house. That's why I'm a public figure, alongside Jupiter being in Aquarius. Pluto was also at its absolute strongest when I was born in Scorpio, in Capricorn's house in the 10th house. So similar to me, he has a strong Scorpio influence, determination, never giving up, just relentless in his pursuit of occult knowledge and wisdom. Natural high levels of clairvoyance, naturally high power level, and yeah, that's essentially it. So yeah, that's why he was so successful. at least relatively speaking. Bye guys, until next time.